Hello, welcome to Growing in Uncertainty. My name is Tess Miller, and through my seminar and coaching business, Wings Unfolded, I help people who love what they do, but they're not sure where it's going. I make these videos always from a standpoint of working out my own stuck issues in the hopes that if you're feeling stuck in any place of your life, you'll benefit from what I'm learning and what I have to share, so we can grow in uncertainty together. So I had an experience recently where there was a pattern of emotion that kept coming up for me. And, I think that we all can have these patterns of emotion that have happened from time to time in our lives. And you realize, oh, wow, there's really something quite familiar about that feeling. And, maybe you keep living the same story over and over again, but they have different characters from your life enacting different roles in that story. So I recently shared one of these emotional pattern experiences with my email group, which if you don't belong to, you can subscribe to my weekly email on my website, www.tess-miller.com. Feel free to go over there. There's some free resources and whatnot on my website as well. But anyway, so I shared with my email group that I was cleaning the house and finding that I was getting very, very upset and frustrated, and a lot of resentment was building up inside of me. And it just, the way that this feeling hit me inside my body felt so familiar. It even came with a thought that I know that I've said to myself many times. And the thought was, I always have to work harder than everybody else. Now, I've had that thought from time to time throughout my life, whether it was when I was in middle school and had to be paired up with a kid in order to write a book report, and the kid didn't really want to do any of the work, and if I wanted an A, I had to do all the work. That was definitely a time when I felt like, I always have to do all the work. Another time was when I was in high school, and the band director asked me to create a band newspaper. And that sounded all well and good until I realized I was doing all of the work. So that was another time when I was saying that to myself. Another time might have been when I was in college, and I was a graduate assistant, and the professor just was really not on top of his lesson plans. And he would come in and he would say, "What are we talking about today?" Yeah, again, I felt like, oh my gosh, why do I always have to do all of the work? So that ended up being a running thought for me, which fueled the same kinds of feelings of resentment and frustration. And once I realized this the other day when I was cleaning, once I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is an old feeling, that's when I could really sit with it and think about, is it true? How true are these feelings right now? How applicable are these feelings to this specific experience right now in my life? So, what ended up happening for me in that moment is I did start thinking about, well, why are these piles of stuff all over in the basement? I think it's because we just had a garage sale. Whose idea was it to put all this stuff here? I think it was mine. So I realized that it was actually me who was making the work harder on myself. And I realized that I needed to start communicating better with my family and setting some boundaries about, well, where can things go and how can we all do our part to take care of these things. So that is one area in my life where I realized I don't need to be applying these old feelings to this particular situation in my life. So a lot of people can have old emotional patterns that come up for them. But what can we do about that when they do come up? They can be such triggering emotional responses sometimes, depending on maybe how many times we've experienced it, or depending on who we're experiencing the trigger with, or whatever else is going on in the background of your life. That can all influence the level that you get triggered. And there's one saying that I particularly love, and it's, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And what that means is if your emotional response to something is really heightened, then chances are really, really good that that's an old emotion to look at. So what we can do, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I talk a lot about awareness and developing your awareness of what you're feeling, where that feeling hits in your body, and what thoughts are accompanying that feeling. But then what you can do with that awareness is you can ask yourself some questions like, when have I felt this way before? You might come up with the origin story of that particular emotion, or you might come up with the fact that this is a recurring pattern in your life. So once you sit with that, you can start to see, what I am experiencing right now actually came from this experience from when I was 5 or from when I was 10. And then once you've become aware of what the story is behind the emotion, then you can acknowledge all the emotions that come with that story. I like to think of this process as when, like, a superhero finally acknowledges their superpowers. Every superhero has an origin story, and oftentimes their origins are kind of outlandish. Of course, they usually involve some kind of radiation or some spider bite or whatever. But what happens is once the superhero has their power, it takes a while for them to figure out how to harness that power and really focus it and use it for powerful, good deeds, or maybe evil deeds. Hopefully not evil deeds in your life. Hopefully good deeds. But anyway, that's where we can think of those moments when we feel the strongest emotions. That might be where, yes, Lori, Scott has infected me. So often, once we take a look at our origin story of where the emotion came from, then we can really learn how to focus the power around it, learn to see how it's actually making us stronger. Because chances are good, if you're being triggered by something, that means that there's a little bit of work to do in an area of your life. And whenever we do that work to get stronger in that area of our life, that's often where we become the strongest. We're most sensitive to those triggering moments, which means we're attuned to when something needs our attention. And so we can use our secret spidey senses to say, oh my gosh, I'm triggered by something. What does that mean? What is this telling me to do? So for example, I'm really sensitive in my life to the times when I might not have set clear boundaries. I might not have communicated to someone where I needed help, or where I expected them to do something, or where my responsibility of taking care of something ends and where their responsibility begins. So whenever I get triggered by that feeling or that thought of, I always have to work harder than everybody else, that usually means that it's time for me to stop and take a look at where I haven't set boundaries well enough, and then I can start setting those boundaries more clearly. So it has actually become a strength, even though for a long time it has felt like a weakness of mine. So something else that you can do is to validate how you feel. Are you a deflector? Do you tend to deflect your emotions? Do you explain them away? Do you push them away? Do you create Teflon in order to make your emotions go away? Are you a blamer? Do you have a tendency to, blame it on somebody else? Oh, so-and-so made me feel this way, or so-and-so is causing this to happen. Maybe you're completely shut off from your emotions. That can happen too when, you don't know how you feel. You're disconnected. That can happen for a lot of us for a lot of different reasons. And that's totally okay. But if you're aware that you're experiencing a pattern over and over and over again, it might be time to check in with yourself and see where any of these ways of not processing emotions are holding you back or keeping you stuck in the pattern in some way. So sitting with your emotions can be challenging at first if you aren't used to doing that. So maybe ask someone to do it with you if there's a safe person in your life that you could do that with, or maybe write it out. Whatever you need to do. Maybe get a therapist, absolutely, so that the therapist can help you figure out what are those emotions, so you can start to sift through that. Not everyone experiences life in the same way, and certainly not everyone would experience your life in exactly the same way that you would experience it. So whatever feelings come up for you, it's okay. It is completely valid. So just something to think about. If you judge your emotions as you're feeling them, it's really hard to process them, because what you're saying is, it's not okay for me to feel this way, and so I'm just not even going to process it. But what happens is it gets stuck someplace else in your body, and then it keeps you in that emotional pattern. So the other thing that you can do is to connect with your inner ally. And I actually have a couple of really powerful exercises on connecting with your inner ally in my book. And I don't know if this is backwards or not. We'll see. Anyway, I have a couple of really great exercises in my book, The Book of Stuck, on how to connect with your inner ally. We all have an inner ally. It's the part of you that would never abandon you, and it actually boosts you up when you most need it. It's the part of you that recognizes that you are the only person who experiences everything from birth to death. You have certain secrets with yourself that you will never tell a soul. And I know that makes it sound like, we all have two people living in ourselves, but we sort of do. We have multiple facets of ourselves that go through our lives together. And another way of thinking of the inner ally is to maybe think of it as your higher self. It's that self that is non-judgmental and just wants to help you get through any and all experiences in life. So once you really recognize that ally, you can then use that alliance within yourself to help find some answers, help figure out some solutions. Remember that your higher self, your inner ally, sometimes has bigger answers to these questions than you could ever imagine. But it still is you. It still is within you. So another thing you can do is focus on controlling only what you can control. This is a hard one sometimes, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. If you find yourself reading the news or social media and reacting strongly to a lot of things, it's easy to get caught up in the idea that I want to try to control these things. I don't want these things to be happening. What can I do to control it? And ultimately, there's not a whole lot that we can do to control everything, or a lot of things in our lives for that matter. Often we can't control the emotions that come up for us when we have certain experiences in life. And that's okay. Again, don't judge your emotions. Let them be there. But what we can control is what we do with our feelings, or how we respond with, what our feelings are telling us. I've talked many times before on these videos about how to process emotions, or different ideas of how to process emotions. So check out any of my other videos where I do talk about emotional processing. And then the other powerful thing that you can do with emotions is take action. It doesn't have to be a big action. Sometimes the action might be just sitting with the emotion itself. Or maybe it's to write about it. Write out the stories that you're playing out in your mind or in your emotions right now. Go for a walk. Or maybe meditate. Or talk to a friend. Or start writing letters that maybe you don't intend to send. Or maybe you do send them. I don't know. That's up to you. Check in with your inner ally to see if that seems like the next best step for you. And really, it doesn't have to be the best step. It can just be the next step. So just trust that you know what's best for you when you check in with yourself. Above all else, when you're experiencing any emotional pattern, don't abandon yourself. Stay with yourself no matter what. Those emotions that you're experiencing serve a purpose. They're letting you know that something inside of you needs attention. They're connecting you to a part of yourself that's actually a strength. Whatever that strength is, it might be time for you to see how you can harness the power of that emotion and take action on it in a really beneficial and powerful way. So the way that I'm taking action in my life right now is making sure that I'm not putting any more pressure on myself than is warranted in any situation. So I'm asking myself questions like, where can I delegate certain things? Where can I prioritize? What needs my attention first? How can I schedule more downtime for myself to avoid the all work and no play syndrome? And, be sure to let me know. I'd love to hear from you about what action you're taking in your life to process your emotions, to recognize your emotions, to break yourself out of any emotional patterns. And again, I highly recommend that you check out my book, The Book of Stuck. There are all kinds of writing exercises in there dealing with processing emotions and getting unstuck from anything that's holding you back in life. So I hope this message resonates with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm always so grateful for your presence and to hear any feedback that you might want to share with me. Please like or share these videos with friends and family who would benefit from these topics. It really helps when you do that because of, algorithms. The more likes and shares and feedback I get, the easier it is for people to find me. You can stay tuned to any updates in my offerings on my Facebook or LinkedIn under my business name, Wings Unfolded. You can find me on Instagram and on YouTube under my name, Tess Miller. And if there's anything you want help with related to a life transition or any place you're feeling stuck, feel free to send me a private message. I'd love to connect with you. Remember that it's okay to be stuck, but you don't have to stay there. Have an amazing week and take care.